The moment I realized the man standing behind me wasn't a customer and hadn't moved in nearly 10 minutes was the moment everything changed. 3 true night shift horror stories. Story 1. Many years ago, I used to work night shift at a hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. During the season, it wasn't so bad, mostly families and stuff. We had on-site security then too. In the off-season though, the winter months were a different story. The cheap weekly rates we'd offer attracted a lot of creepy people. The idea was supposed to be to make money in the off-season by renting to what are known as snowbirds, older retired people who came to the beach for a month or more through the winter. It didn't always work out that way. The cheap rates made it possible for a less than desirable element to become long-term residents. I've discovered more than my fair share of meth labs, broken up physical assaults, and more during those winter months. Working third shift, I would meet some interesting people. The cold weather meant some homeless people would come in to get warm and grab a cup of free coffee. I wasn't supposed to let them, but it's not in me to be cruel. I'd let them grab a coffee and warm up for a few minutes, as long as they didn't cause trouble. Night shift in the winter made for some crazy and sometimes creepy stories. I have a lot of them, but this one stands out because it didn't end well for me. I had a great night up to that point. I had gone to an indie wrestling show with my best friend before work. I had agreed to come in an hour early the next night for the young lady who worked second shift, in exchange for her working an hour late on this night so I could enjoy the show. I even got to meet Terry Funk that night, a wrestling legend known for his hardcore and bloody matches. I was about to experience that kind of violence for real. I was supposed to be there at midnight since she had worked over an hour for me. I normally came in at 11 p.m. I counted the register, and she briefed me on her shift as usual. As she was leaving, my friend, we'll call him Andrew, pulled up. He worked second shift maintenance at this hotel and the other 2 hotels our company owned. He would regularly stop by after work, grab us some food, and we'd play World of Warcraft on our laptops for a while since business was so slow. He was just getting my money and food order and getting ready to leave. I was excited, telling him about how much fun I'd had at the wrestling show and showing him my Terry Funk t-shirt. I was walking into the back office to put the shirt away when I heard the doorbell indicating a customer had come in. I turned around when I heard someone say something loudly, but I couldn't make out what they said. I had just reached the doorway when I saw Andrew drop to the floor in front of me. Then a guy walked around the corner and punched me in the head with a short steel pipe in his hand. It staggered me and I went down to one knee. He hit me in the head with the pipe again. The next thing I remember is hearing the other guy, who I hadn't noticed until that moment, say that Andrew got away and flagged down a cop. They left out the door. I was finally able to get to my feet. I tried to call the police from the phone in the back office, but it was having issues. I slammed it in frustration. I was hurting and scared and really freaking out. I realized they could come back. So I ran and locked the front door. I didn't know where Andrew had gone, and that worried me. I called 911 around that time. Blood had started pouring down my head. I told the operator I had been attacked and needed an officer and an ambulance. I then called the other hotel we ran to let the night manager, Travis, who was over all 3 properties, know what had happened. He thought I was messing with him at first because when we got bored, we would prank each other. I finally convinced him I wasn't joking, and he said he'd lock up and come down. The cops and ambulance pulled up, and I opened the door. It was then that I found out what had happened to Andrew. After they sucker punched him and knocked him down, he had managed to jump over the desk and escape just as a cop was driving by, and he ran to flag him down for help. I ended up in the hospital ER where I had to have 10 staples put in my scalp. They gave me morphine for the pain. I had no way to get home after being treated, but the doctor and nurses took pity on me and paid for a cab. My plan was to go back to work because it was December and Christmas was coming. I had 3 kids and needed all the hours I could get. When I got back to the hotel, the IT guy Ted was there with his wife Barbara. who also worked the front desk. She was shocked to see me. She thought I'd still be in the hospital. I had thought I was only hit in the head once. The security footage Ted was pulling for the police told a different story. After I went to one knee, the guy had hit me not just once, but 10 total times. I kept trying to grab the pipe and get up for some reason. I don't remember any of that. I guess I was out on my feet. He kept hitting me with the pipe until his friend told him Andrew had gotten away and gotten the cops, and then the two of them ran out. I was given a room at the other hotel we owned, and Ted and Barbara gave me a lift there since I was in no condition to drive because of the morphine. They also gave me a paid week off to heal. They switched me over to the other hotel on night shift for a month, just in case the guys were after me specifically. We never found out why they chose to attack us. The police thought it might have been a failed strong-arm robbery, given that Andrew got away and I didn't just go down and stay down. It shook me up not knowing. Even when I came back to work at the other hotel, every time the door chimed I tensed up. I couldn't afford to quit though. I had 3 kids to support. They never caught the guys as far as I know. A detective stopped by about 2 months later when I was working second shift. He showed me several mugshots and asked if any of them looked familiar. I never got a great look at the attackers since it all happened so fast, and I had only seen the security footage, which wasn't great quality. Even so, 2 of the photos looked very familiar. I pointed them out, and he asked me how sure I was. I told him honestly, maybe 85%. He then raised his voice and asked me if I wanted someone to go to jail for attempted murder on 85% certainty. I was stunned. I was the victim. I had been attacked for no reason, and he was yelling at me like it was my fault I was too busy being beaten with a pipe to get a better look at them. I don't work hotel night shifts anymore, and I'm glad. It's just too dangerous in this area. Story 2. This happened back when I was 24. I'm a nurse, and at the time I was working at an outpatient facility on strictly night shift. For those who may not know, outpatient facilities care for patients recovering from surgery. On a typical night, we would have 1 or 2 patients. It was rare to have any more than that. During the night, there were a few routine things I was required to do, and I would act on request if needed. But me and the med tech were usually hanging out in the nurse's break room right next to our desk, watching TV or on our phones. We also had a security guard on site. It was an unarmed position, which I still have my issues with. Our full-time guard was a man who was pushing 70 at the time. Don't get me wrong, he was the biggest sweetheart in the world. But if push ever came to shove, I don't know how effective he would have been in a crisis. Our other guard was a part-timer who only worked 2 or 3 shifts every couple of weeks. My brother used to joke that he was a professional NPC because he worked several different jobs to make ends meet. He was 28 at the time, and the nursing staff tended to favor him because he actually did his job properly. One reservation I had about him was that he wasn't always in the security office. He conducted his checks and would also check an adjoining facility, so he wasn't always at his desk. We didn't always need him, but it was nice to have him there in case we needed to go outside. This was one of the nights he was working. So this isn't great for a nurse to admit, but I used to go outside a few times a night for a sneaky cigarette. I've quit since, but back then I would probably go out between 4 and 6 times a night to smoke near my car. It was around midnight, give or take. I was leaning against my car smoking when these 2 guys started walking through the parking lot. Trespassing was a big issue, but the parking lot was a shortcut to a local motel, and security usually wouldn't get involved if people were just passing through quickly. The 2 guys spotted me and called out. I didn't respond, which seemed to work as an invitation for them to come over. I know I should have just tossed the cigarette and gone back inside, but 24-year-old me ignored that common sense. Both of them were probably in their mid-20s. Nothing obviously off about the way they looked. Aside from how they were talking to me and the fact that they were heading to the motel, they probably wouldn't have stood out to me in a crowd. One of them asked me for a cigarette. I told him I left my pack inside and couldn't help them. He then started asking me questions about my job, where I was from, how old I was. I didn't take the bait on any of it. I told them I had to get back inside. One of them sort of stepped in my way, and the other asked if he could have my number. I said no. The thing that pushed me over the edge was when one of them moved my jacket aside to see my name tag and put his face really close to it to read my name. It was obvious he was just trying to look at my chest. That was the line for me. I pushed past them and foolishly went straight to the front door that my keycard didn't open, so I had literally cornered myself between the door and these two guys. I had to find a way around them to get to the side door I had come out of, but judging by their body language, that wasn't going to go well for me. Then I heard a familiar voice. Our part-time security guard had been checking the other facility and managed to show up right before I had to either run or start pleading. One of the guys got smart with him, but after a long staring contest, he backed down and the two of them left. I did enjoy the look on that guy's face when he realized he was dealing with someone who could probably cause him serious harm. I remember giving the guard a hug and thanking him. After that night, I started looking forward to his shifts. He made all of us feel a lot safer. He and I started talking more, and he would walk outside with me when I wanted to smoke. We would occasionally split a pizza or something during the shifts we had together. I know it isn't the most conventional way to start the story of the man who would become my husband 3 years later and give me 2 beautiful little girls, but it's a story that reminds me he has always had my back. I still don't know what those 2 guys intended that night. As much as I'd like to believe they wouldn't have tried anything in plain view of security cameras. Working as a nurse has taught me that people frequently don't think things through. I'm just grateful that someone showed up when they did, and that it led me to the best person I know. Story 3. This happened when I was 19, working closing shifts at a Sam's Club in North Carolina. The store was maybe a 7-minute drive from my mom's house, which was part of why I liked the job. Short commute, decent pay, and honestly, the people I worked with made it worth it. We were close in the way that night shift crews tend to get close. You spend enough late hours together folding clothes and mopping floors, and you start to actually trust each other. The incident I'm about to talk about started right after a big holiday sales event. I don't remember which one exactly, but you know how those go. The store gets absolutely wrecked. Clothes pulled off racks, piles left on folding tables, everything out of place. My job that night was to work through the clothing section and get it back to looking like a store and not a disaster zone. It was late. The store was winding down, and most of the customers had cleared out, or so I thought. I was working through a stack of folded shirts when I noticed someone in my peripheral vision, a man, just standing there, watching me. Not browsing, not walking past, just watching. I figured he needed help finding something. That's the job, so I turned and asked him if there was anything I could help him find. He answered in this slightly nervous, high-pitched voice and asked about a different size for something in the clothing section. I helped him find it. Normal enough. But then he didn't leave. He started complimenting me, telling me I was pretty, asking if I was Hispanic. I was tired and just trying to get through my shift, so I didn't let it register as anything alarming. Honestly, I even wondered briefly if he was gay and just being friendly. I know that sounds naive now. As the store was getting close to closing time, he asked for my Snapchat, and I gave it to him. I genuinely cringe thinking about that now. A 19-year-old handing her contact information to a man who looked like he was in his 40s. I told myself I was never actually going to talk to him. I just wanted him to go away so I could finish my section. After we closed out and got the last customers out of the store, I found my closest coworker. I'll call her Bestie. I mentioned the guy to her casually, told her his name was Kevin, more as a funny, awkward story than anything serious. Her face changed immediately. She went still and asked to see his Snapchat profile. The second I pulled it up, she went quiet in a way that made my stomach drop. She didn't say anything to me right away. She called over one of the managers we both trusted. Suddenly, I was being asked a lot of questions. What did he look like? What did he say? Was he alone? How long was he talking to me? And then they told me who he actually was. Kevin was a former employee. He had been fired after a pattern of behavior that centered on a girl who used to work there. He would show up on her days off just to find her. He used the paper schedules posted in the break room to figure out exactly when she was working. It got bad enough that the store eventually let him go. That schedule thing stuck with me because apparently that situation was the entire reason the store switched from paper schedules to a personal app system. He had forced that change. And now, according to everyone standing around me in that parking lot, I was the next person he had decided to focus on. My manager and bestie walked me to my car that night. While we were all standing there in the parking lot, my phone went off. Snapchat notification from Kevin. I showed them immediately. The message asked if I lived nearby and whether I wanted to hang out. Bestie told me exactly what to say back. I told him I didn't live alone and had roommates close by. He asked if he could come over anyway. I said no. When I got home, I blocked him. Out of pure curiosity, I looked him up on Facebook afterward. He had a wife, kids, a whole family. I thought about reaching out to her, warning her about what her husband was doing, but I was told that the girl before me had already tried that exact thing, and the wife hadn't believed her. So I let it go. The next day at work, Bestie's voice came over the walkie-talkie telling me to head to the back of the store. Kevin was there. He was at the front asking for me by name. That became the pattern. Almost every single shift for months, he would come into the store and ask where I was. I would hide in the break room, the stock room, wherever I could go that wasn't the sales floor. After a while, most of my coworkers knew what was going on without me having to explain it every time. They just looked out for me. One day, Bestie didn't catch him coming in fast enough. By the time I spotted him on the floor, I saw her waving at me from across the store and heard her voice come through the walkie at the same time. I moved fast and ducked into the jewelry department where an older coworker was working. I'll call her Mrs. Joy. I barely got the word out, just whispered Kevin, and she understood the whole situation immediately without me saying anything else. He walked straight over, asked if a little Hispanic girl from clothing was working that day. Mrs. Joy told him no with a completely straight face. He didn't leave right away. He stood there circling the jewelry counter, pretending to look at the cases, while I was crouched behind the counter pretending to look for something near the floor. There were customers nearby, and I was trying not to make a sound or move in a way that would make anyone look down. Eventually, he walked away. I stayed crouched behind that counter for over an hour before I felt okay enough to move. The thing that scared me most wasn't actually inside the store. Some nights after closing, when the employees were heading out to the parking lot, there would be a minivan sitting out there with its lights off and its engine running. It would stay there until I got to my car. I never had proof it was him. I couldn't prove it, but the timing was always off in a way that didn't feel random. After about 5 months, it stopped. He just gradually stopped coming in. No more walkie warnings. No more hiding behind counters. No more checking the parking lot for that van. I never filed a restraining order. I was 19 and overwhelmed and dealing with a lot of other things in my life at the time. And I just didn't have the capacity to take on that whole process. But if Kevin is somehow reading this, I want you to know that you turned my workplace into somewhere I had to hide for months, and a whole group of people spent their shifts protecting me because of you. I hope you've gotten some kind of help since then. I really do.